What's going on, Cigar Club family? Welcome back to another episode of the Cigar Club podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in and leaving your thoughts and feedback on each episode. If this is your first time, the Cigar Club podcast is where we talk about all things cigars with you, the Cigar Club family. On today's episode, I'm going to be smoking one of the featured cigars that came out in our March Black Box, as well as answering some of your questions that you've been submitting on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, messaging us all over. So a little fun episode. But the cigar that I'm going to be smoking is the 1502 XO. The tobacco in this cigar was aged for a minimum of 18 years old. This is a brand, 1502 is the brand. This is a brand that I absolutely love. We're going to be getting these guys in our normal monthly boxes here in the future as well. But the 1502 is made at the Plasencia farm. This cigar in particular is a 7x48 Churchill. It features a semi-closed foot, which is actually really cool. I don't normally see a semi-closed foot like this too often or really at all. Usually it's a fully closed foot or not closed at all. But this is a Nicaraguan Puro. Like I said, all of this tobacco in this cigar has been aged a minimum of 18 years old. The XO, if you're a fan of cognac or rum, XO means extra old, which is obviously labeling the tobacco in this cigar. But it has, just right off the bat, the cold draw. This is like pure chocolate-covered raisins. I've only smoked this cigar once when I was lining up for the Black Box. And I'm really excited to get back into it. It's been probably 3 or 4 months since I've smoked this cigar. So really excited to re-smoke this one. Now, if you haven't smoked this cigar before, and you are, by the end of this episode, wanting to smoke it, we still have spots available in our Cigar Club Black premium subscription. So head on over to our website, cigarclub.com/black, where you'll be able to sign up and receive a March Black Box. The next Black Box will be coming out in June this year, so you've got still time to get in there and get your hands on this cigar, as well as 3 other premium top shelf cigars. The Black, if you're not aware of our Black subscription, I launched the Cigar Club Black back in September of 2022. I can't believe it's already been 2 years now. But this was a way for us to offer some of the more limited edition, rarer cigars that offered a higher MSRP that just couldn't necessarily fit into the monthly subscription. This is our way of offering this experience to y'all. It's a quarterly subscription, and it's just a really fun really fun way to offer these cigars that maybe they only make 1,000 of them, and that just couldn't offer it for the whole monthly subscription. This is a way for us to be able to introduce those cigars to y'all. And it's a great way to experience what the higher end of the spectrum in terms of top shelf, those $30 MSRP, $25 MSRP, $20 MSRP cigars. It's a great way to get your hands on those limited releases that may not be in your local brick and mortar. But I'm going to go ahead and get this cigar lit up here, and let's jump into it. And while I get this lit up, it has been almost a week since I've had a cigar. It's been a while since we've had a podcast, so a lot has happened over the last month, which I can't wait to share with y'all. I had some wonderful vacations, a wonderful anniversary cruise over at the end of March, and then this previous weekend I just went camping, which is always an exciting time. There's nothing more than I love than either waking up and having a cigar around a campfire while we're cooking breakfast and coffee, or closing out the evening, cooking s'mores and lighting up a cigar. It's, to me, one of the most enjoyable places. It's so relaxing. You're already in a relaxed state when you light up that cigar, and it just, completes the atmosphere, completes the experience rather. But let's get into this. Right away, those chocolatey notes that I picked up on the retro hail or on the cold draw rather, are still present. It's almost like a milk chocolatey, fruity, raisins, cherries, dark berry. Initially, there's a little bit of sweetness and then some pepper right on the front here. Now, if I recall, when I smoked this a few months ago, that pepper subsides pretty quickly, and those dark chocolatey, fruity notes really take a prominent role in the cigar. The one thing that I enjoy about this one is usually when I associate aged tobacco, it starts to take on that barnyard, musty, mushroomy, umami notes. And I find that this one actually is more chocolate pronounced than it is those umami, barnyard, earthy notes. So it was something that really surprised me with this one, and was one of the reasons why I looked to include it in our March Black offering, is because it was different than that typical aged cigar. And I think a lot of that has to do with the tobacco that Plasencia has available. This is very reminiscent of a aged Padron to me. It's got that classic full-bodied Nicaraguan, spicy, chocolatey, dark tasting notes, a little bit of leather in there as well. And so one that really surprised me with this blend and why I looked to include it. Now, I'm not drinking anything with this one, but the pairing recommendation I made for this cigar in our black box, the booklet that's included, includes all of the description of the cigar, the wrapper, binder, filler, the factory, as well as tasting notes, and then the featured suggested pairing for this for each cigar that you receive in the Cigar Club Black. And this one, I recommend the Ron Zacapa XO rum, playing on that XO aged statement of the cigar and the XO extra aged of that rum. I found it paired really nicely. The sweetness of that rum with a little bit of spiciness, I thought played really nicely with the cigar, and they both complemented each other very well. But let's continue smoking this cigar, and let's jump in some of these questions, and then let's see what y'all have been asking over on the Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever we're at. So Joe Burtz, thanks for submitting your question, asked, what are the best cigars for around $20? And anymore, obviously, cigars over the last few years, everything else in the world has been going up in price. I still think the sweet spot for cigars is between $8 and $12. There's a couple arguments that could be made for around the $16. I do the same thing with spirits as well. Bourbon, to me, the sweet spot's $50. Scotch is like $100. Tequila is probably around $50 to $75. Just kind of where you start to see diminishing returns. And for me, I think you start to see that around $20, $25 in the cigar category as well. And it's just typically a lot of times as you start to break into that $20, $25 plus range, you're paying a lot for the marketing, the branding of the cigar. Davidoff's a great example of it. A lot of their cigars are marketed at that $20 range because, you're paying for some of that branding, some of that marketing that goes into it. For the $20 range, let's see here. The Plasencia Almafuerte, which is around $15 to $30, depending on the Vitola that you get, is a really, really good cigar. One that's not going to let you down. Really good burn lines, consistency in their blends. Trying to think. The Liga Privada T52 Double Corona is another cigar that I really like. Now, the Double Corona is certainly a time sink of a smoke. That thing's going to last you like 3 hours. But for the price of it, you're definitely getting your money's worth in that cigar. Another cigar that I really like is going to be any of the Byron series cigar from United. They certainly carry a higher $20, $25 MSRP price range. They are a full-bodied cigar on most cases, very cedary, very earthy, very leathery. But I really enjoy every Byron cigar that I've had. And they even have some that are in the $30 to $50 range as well when you get into some of the more limited editions of those cigars. And then lastly for me, Atabes are a wonderful smoke. I think they're very reminiscent of Cuban cigars, but more so like that very vintage Davidoff classic profile, creamy, leathery, cedary. And a tasting note that I think is very reminiscent of Cuban cigars is going to be Hay. I love this cigar in the morning with a latte, shot of espresso. It just pairs perfectly with that. And you could certainly smoke it any time of the day. But one of my favorite cigars is the Atabeg. But great question. For me, that $20 range is where I start to be hesitant about picking something up, especially new releases. Usually $12, it doesn't feel like you're breaking the bank to try a new cigar. That $16 to $20 range is where you get to be a little bit more hesitant, maybe more selective in the cigars that you're picking up. This next question comes from MK291100. What do you think about electric humidors, and can you recommend one or two? So I have an electric humidor myself. I purchased this back in 2016 when I started to get into cigars and started to find myself having more singles and boxes. So I picked up a half wine cooler and half cigar humidor. It was a great way to sell the wife on it. We certainly drink wine, so it wasn't like that half was going to go to waste. So it holds about 300 cigars, I would say. I wish I knew the brand off the top of my head. I'm not too familiar with too many brands. It's not a New Air. It's not some of the other brands. I'll have to go look for it. I did buy it off Amazon, but it's done really well. It came with cedar inserts, so I already had shelves and drawers. I didn't have to go out and buy any or get any pre-made for it. Each side is able to hold its own temperature, so the wine's going to be cooler than the cigars, or however you like to set up your temperature for your cigars. The one thing that I have noticed that it was a little tricky to find the stable RH range, so that relative humidity range of it. I don't know if it's just the nature of this one, or if it's maybe the nature with all electronic humidors. I only have one. I've only had experience with this one. But I know I have to have a little bit more Boveda packets in there. The RH seems to be lower at the top than it is the bottom. So I'm constantly rotating the Bovedas that I have in that humidor. Usually once a month, I'll take that top one, put it on the bottom, and put the bottom up top. But for me, it's a really simple way. I usually store my more higher end single cigars that aren't in boxes in that humidor, just because I like that, I can trust it. That said, I used to have a lot of wooden humidors, and if someone were to offer me one or the other, I would go electronic. The wooden humidors I found just didn't hold the RH that I wanted them to. You got to make sure that the wood's seasoned. If depending on the time of the year or your location, the wood can swell and cause leaking. And they just tended to be much more of a hassle and a headache than they were worth. So I would recommend electronic humidors. I would also just recommend airtight containers or Boveda bags. This day and age, I have more singles in the big Boveda bags that they sell. I think they're like 100 count. They zip, put a Boveda packet in there, and it holds it perfectly. Or I have a bunch of sealed, airtight storage containers that I store boxes of cigars in. They're wider, they can hold more volume, and it's easier to stack cigars in there. And those are pretty much throw a big old Boveda packet in there or two and forget it. And I've had no issues with it. So for me, I like anything but wooden humidor. They look good. I think they're not as practical as they once were with all these new options that are available. So jump into the next question, and then we'll talk a little bit about the cruise that I went on, because what a wonderful time that was, and smoked a lot of cigars. So this one comes from Tom Dog. Thank you, Tom, for your question. What's a good chocolate or coffee kind of flavored one that's not infused? Yeah, great question. And so a lot of people think to get particular tasting notes, they have to be infused. A big popular one is the Rocky Patel Java, which is a coffee infused cigar. They also make like a mint chocolate chip one. Now, they're not for me. I love that they have a place in the cigar industry, in the cigar world. A lot of times these infused or flavored cigars are gateway cigars that introduce people into, tobacco, and then allow them to jump into the premium tobacco. A lot of times these flavored cigars will be mixed filler, sometimes short filler, depending on the size or the brand of the cigar. And they're artificially infused with flavors that, like I said, coffee or mint chocolate chip or chocolate. But off the top of my head, I'll try to break them down between both. A great chocolate cigar, I really enjoy the Bocock Brothers signature cigar that they came out with in 2022, made with, at the AJ Fernandez factory. That cigar is a chocolate bomb. So shameless plug, this cigar that I'm smoking right here is certainly milk chocolate forward. Obviously, there's some other tasty notes into that as well, but really chocolate forward, very pronounced milk chocolate. A coffee flavored cigar. This one tends to be a little more difficult for me personally to pick out a coffee flavor. Usually it's coffee bean as opposed to like brewed coffee. I usually find this tasting note in more mild cigars. They're not necessarily mild per se, or Connecticut cigars, not necessarily mild, but they'll use a Connecticut wrapper. Off the top of my head, the Lampert Gringo cigar, made by Lampert Cigars, has that coffee element into it. It's never one that is going to be the predominant flavor. Usually it's going to be one that maybe occasionally pops up in a cigar. That Lampert Gringo, heavy on the cedar, creamy, occasional coffee bean in there, occasional like espresso notes that can be found in there as well. So that one's a little more difficult for me to make recommendations, just because it's not one that's usually super pronounced and is, I think, more subjective than chocolate. No, I think chocolate's usually easily identifiable. Coffee can be a little bit harder to find. A lot of times, though, if you pair a really good Connecticut cigar with coffee, that can help pull out some of those more coffee, subtle coffee flavors actually in the cigar. The Villiger Kareem cigar, I think of. The Fratello Oro is another cigar that when you have it with coffee really helps to bring out those coffee notes in the cigar itself. And I'm going to tie this right into the next question because they're very similar. Wrigley_48 wants to know what's a great coffee cigar in the morning. The Villiger Kareem, the Fratello Oro. I love Origin, which is a customs that I did back in 2022, which can be found on our site in the vault. That cigar to me is just perfect with coffee in the morning. If you like something maybe a little bit more full-bodied, the Warped Corto, I think, is the best cigar to pair with just a plain shot of espresso. They go absolutely hand in hand. I think there is no better pairing recommendation that you can make for Corto outside of just a shot of espresso. But all great questions so far. I love doing these because I go into these, without Ramsey, pulls them in the back for me and puts these in a list. And I like coming into these blind because it makes my brain wrap and start to think about some of these things without kind of preemptively coming up with an answer and doing research. It helps keep the mind active. But many of you know, at the end of March, I went on my 10th anniversary cruise, which is why we've had a little bit of a break in the podcast as we went on vacation. Ramsey was out. We took a little time off, so that was enjoyable to recharge the batteries and just take some time away. But on this cruise, and something that's I haven't seen in probably 15 or 20 years, was a cigar lounge. And many of you, if you are frequent cruisers or have gone on a cruise, a lot of times they stick you on the ass end of the ship, outside in like a gangway where the wind is just whipping through. You're never near a bar. You're never really near anyone. And so the last thing that you want to do when you're on a cruise is go isolate yourself in a corner, have the wind basically ruin your cigar experience. And long story short, you bring a bunch of cigars that you rarely ever smoke. And so it was a couple weeks or months, maybe about a month before we went on this cruise, I was scrolling through the list of amenities and I saw Cigar Lounge, and I was absolutely excited. I still didn't believe it. I was still skeptical as I walked on the ship with way too many cigars that I'd get there and, it was closed or just maybe only open for like 2 hours, or they just forgot to rebrand it. But lo and behold, it was open. It was open 24/7, and I was very shocked at how many cigar smokers were in this lounge. And I found myself being there after dinner for every night for about 3 hours, in between shows and things to do while other people are eating. So it was really nice to be able to sit down and have a cigar after my meal, not feel like I was missing on any of the activities or events. And little did I know that the bourbon bar, which was, 15 feet away from the cigar lounge, included in my drink package was Blanton's E.H. Taylor, Old Forester 1910, Old Forester 1920, Ron Zacapa 23 rum. I mean, my goodness, did I apparently pay for the premium drink package, and I took advantage of it to its fullest. I've never seen Buffalo Trace products outside of just regular Buffalo Trace on a cruise. For them to have Blanton's and E.H. Taylor, I mean, they went through bottles and bottles of these of E.H. Taylor and Blanton's. Everyone that had the premium drink package who enjoyed bourbon was at the bourbon bar every night, putting away glasses, doubles, just left and right. So that was really cool, very dangerous. I certainly drank my weight in Blanton's and E.H. Taylor, and took every available opportunity to indulge in those. But the people that did show up in the lounge, I was shocked. So this was at PCA. Or during PCA, so that's why we didn't attend PCA this year. But there were shop owners in there. There were previous shop owners in there. And the group of people that we were basically there every night, it just reminded me why I love the cigar community so much. There's something about, and we've talked about it before, the ritual of having a cigar and how easy and quickly it brings people together. I mean, we had people from all across the United States immediately be friends, because as soon as someone sat down and lit up a cigar, it would be, first, hey, what are you smoking? And then as we became friends with that group of people, the next group of people that would come in and be like, hey, what are you smoking? And, we may have been in different sections of the cigar lounge on the ship or in this room. But, I mean, we were all talking to each other from across the room. There was no, group here, group there, group there, group there, all isolated conversations. We immediately became family. We immediately became friends. We all knew each other's names by the end of it. We all, exchanged information, friends on Facebook now, Instagram. And so it was just a really cool experience. I hadn't been to a cigar lounge in a little while, just because, I smoke a lot at home. And so, I don't get out to my local brick and mortar as much as I should. But it just reminded me of why I love the cigar community so much. Everyone is so friendly. And, the banter going back and forth with people that I met 3 hours ago, busting each other's chops and having a good time, and all of it just coming from such a warming and welcoming place. And it was just a really fun experience, something that I never thought I'd see or have on a cruise ship, because it had been so long since I'd seen a cigar lounge. So I'm now spoiled to have a cigar lounge on a cruise, and it's going to be difficult for me I'm going to be continue cruising, but it'll be weird going on my next cruise and not having a cigar lounge on there. So if anyone owns or is working in a cruise liner or in the cruise industry, you got to open up more cigar bars for us. Our cigar smokers, we don't want to be stuck on the tail end of the ship. You can't smoke in a casino. They only allow cigarettes. You got to give us a place to get together and have a good time, because you won't let us do it in the casino. Reason being is the cigars produce more smoke than cigarettes. And so that's usually why a cruise ship doesn't want you to smoke cigars in the casino. One thing that was really cool, and then I'll jump into the next question, we were smoking so many cigars in that cigar lounge. There was probably 15, 20 of us there, after dinner. They constantly kept having to send in a maintenance person, because they were getting false alarms of the bridge that there was a fire in the cigar lounge. Now, I get why we have to have a smoke detector in the cigar lounge. Thank God it didn't go off and beep or make noise. They just get a little light probably in the bridge. But that thing needs to have its sensitivity recalibrated, because we were smoking it out. So this next question comes from Braden Clems. I had one of the principal aviators and wasn't a fan. Do you have any other suggestions? We did a little follow-up and just kind of wanted to know what the cigars they normally smoke, any brands they normally smoke. And Braden followed up with that he's a big fan of Nicaraguan cigars, and they typically like Aganorsa tobacco or Aganorsa brand as well. And for me, I think my recommendation, if you wanted to try a different principle, is going to be the Principal Corojo. That's going to be the purple band. I like this cigar in the Lancero Vitola, but it smokes fantastic in all of them. Robusto would be my next go-to in terms of size if you're not a particular fan of Vitola. But it's going to give you more. It's still a Dominican Puro, but it's going to give you more of those full-bodied flavors that you're probably used to in a Nicaraguan cigar. And, you called out Aganorsa as well. So it's going to have some of that earthy, barnyardy, well, barnyard's probably not the right word, earthy, spicy notes that you can find in a lot of the Aganorsa tobacco. So once again, I'd recommend the Principal Corojo, Accomplice Corojo, and it's going to be the one that has the purple band around it. So update on this thing. Once again, that chocolate's still there. We're starting to get more woody notes, more cedar. Spanish cedar, I think, is probably the more accurate description of what that particular flavor is. And then there's a little bit of pop of citrus spice in there. So if you think of orange zest, that's kind of what's popping out here. Almost reminiscent of an old fashioned, because there's some brown sugary notes in there, a little bit of sweetness coming in So it almost reminds me of like an old fashioned. I like using Aztec chocolate bitters in my old fashioned. And I think that could pair really well with this cigar, especially if you were going to use rum instead of bourbon to make that old fashioned. That could be really, really good as a pairing for this cigar. The next question comes from M Dubs over on our Discord. If you're wondering what the heck Discord is a basically a chat room, I guess would be a better way, but it's a program that you can join and follow. Join us. It's free. We're posting pictures of what we're smoking, what we're drinking. We send updates in there. Sometimes we drop some deals early before we announce them to anyone else. So if you're not a part of our Discord, there will be a link below this in the description of this video on YouTube. Click that link, make your account, download Discord, come join us. We'd love to see what you're smoking, what you're drinking, just a good time, general banter, a lot of great people over in there. But MDoes wants to know, what are your top 5 celebration cigars, promotion, wedding, baby, anniversary, whatever it may be? Now, this is a question I wish I would have seen beforehand, but I'm glad I didn't, because some thought would love to go in it. But top of my head, top 5 celebration cigars. I'm going to throw Origin in there. I know I talked about it already, but that cigar will hold a special place in my life forever. It's the cigar that I blended, my first cigar that I blended, but I also blended that cigar specific for my father, who came out on Father's Day in our customs back then, and it's just very special cigar for me. Another cigar, I always try to have one of these a year, and that's going to be an Opus X. I usually like having that cigar on Thanksgiving. To me, I think it makes a wonderful post-Thanksgiving meal, maybe after you've taken your turkey nap. But that's be kind of a tradition for me, that cigar in particular. That's 2. Atabey is another one. I really enjoy having that cigar on my birthday week. I usually keep 1 or 2 in the humidor and kind of smoke it on my birthday or the week of my birthday. It's a higher end cigar, so it feels like I need to save it for a special occasion, although I'm trying to get better at not waiting for the right moment to smoke cigars, something I've talked about before, because there's no time like the present. So I'm getting better at not saving those cigars in particular for my birthday, especially if I had maybe more than one. If I have one, I'm probably going to wait. Another cigar is going to be the Cavalier Domaine Rouge. Now, this is one that we had shipped a while back in one of our previous black boxes, so it's no longer available. But if you haven't had that Cavalier Domaine Rouge, go ahead and treat yourself. Get out there, find that cigar. I think it's around $16 MSRP, but it is an amazing cigar for that price range. One of the best cigars at that $16 price range, in my opinion. It just packs a punch in terms of flavor, medium in strength, so it's a cigar that you could smoke at any time of the day, and one that I find myself gravitating towards even outside of special occasions. But that's a really good price point that's not going to break the bank, especially if you're looking to celebrate a momentous occasion. Not a particular cigar, but a brand that I would go towards to celebrate is going to be Davidoff or Padron. There's a reason why they are so popular, and they carry a higher end MSRP for the most part. Obviously, you can find some that are maybe in that $8 to $12 range, but for the most part, they're going to be around 15, 16 and upwards. But I think these cigars are perfect if you're looking to celebrate a newborn, or you're celebrating with a friend. They got a promotion and you want to have a cigar with them. You can't go wrong grabbing a Padron, grabbing a Davidoff. Most local brick and mortars have them. You can certainly find them online, at any of the online retailers that you purchase from. But they're tried and true classics for a reason, and always a great cigar to pick up. Usually consistent. Obviously you can have their hand rolled products, so sometimes you can have burn issues, but for the most part, they're going to be consistent in flavor, consistent in construction, and pretty much consistent in burn lines and draws as well. So one that you can't go wrong grabbing a Padron or an Opus. The next question is going to come from Justin Ray. Let me take a look at that Vitola. Type it up over here, because we certainly love the Ramon Alones. I don't know if I've ever had the Gigantes before. Oh, I wonder if this is the Cuban cigar that he's referring to and not the American version. That's probably what it is. Yeah. So I was thinking it was the AJ Fernandez Ramon Alones, but it looks like the Gigantes one that they're talking about in particular is going to be the actual Cuban brand Ramon Alones. and not the U.S. version of it. So I'm taking a look here. Cigar Aficionado rated this cigar in 2021 at number 18, 33 euros. So that's probably 35 to 40 US dollars. They gave this a 93. It's a 7 5/8 by 49 ring gauge. I love that ring gauge. Big old smoke. And just reading along about it, the Ramon Alones Gigantes is probably the least known of the bunch, but it's a cigar that delivers big flavor again and again, seldom dipping below 90 points in Cigar Aficionado blind tasting. The latest version they smoked in 2021 were nutty and floral with a backbone of toastiness along with an array of spices, including white pepper, vanilla, and cinnamon. I would love to make a video on that one. Unfortunately, that's not going to be a cigar that I probably ever get my hands on just because Cuban prices are astronomical these days. And more to the point, I'm never in a place that's going to sell Cubans. Obviously, there are ways to get them. But usually you got to buy boxes. I'm not really particularly interested in buying a box of Cubans. And rarely do I ever come across on travels, going into LCDH or whatever the Casa Habanos is. So not a cigar that I'd probably get my hands on, but from obviously just reading that Cigar Aficionado is a very popular Cuban cigar. I've never actually had the Ramon Alones Cuban brand before. I've had other Cuban brands, but that's not one that I've actually ever come across of. But the American version of the Ramon Alones is wonderful. So if you haven't smoked that one, I'd recommend you picking up that cigar and give it a shot, Justin, and see if it's certainly not going to be the same flavor profile as the Cuban version, but I'd love to know your thoughts on it if you haven't had that cigar before and you're able to pick it up and give it a try. So lastly, like I said at the beginning of the show, I just came back from camping this previous weekend. I absolutely love going out. We normally go camping twice a year. We're trying to go a little bit more, but it gets really hot here in the South, so there's only a limited time between too cold and too hot. Usually a month in April, starts to get a little hot in May, and then towards September and October, there's usually a couple weeks in there where it's really enjoyable. It's not too cold out, but it's not too hot. But there's nothing more that I love than waking up, having a cup of coffee, waiting for that coffee to boil even, lighting up a cigar, cracking open a cold beer at the same time, and just having a cigar and just really starting the day off. It's just, there's something so simplistic about being camping that I really enjoy. We're not bringing an RV, we're sleeping in tents and stuff like that, but it's just it's something that I only recently started doing a few years ago. I never went camping as a kid, and something that I really found out that I like a lot. We've been, looking for new places to go camping. We just recently went to FDR State Park in Georgia, and absolutely beautiful. The pollen was thick, but the weather was nice. At night, it got down into the mid 50s, which was a little cold, but it felt really nice when the fire was going. And then it got up into about the 80s, which started to get a little too hot during the day. So I could have enjoyed it being, maybe in the low 70s would have been probably more ideal my range. But just, having a cigar by a fire, staring into the fire at night, the only thing lighting up the sky is the fireplace. Everyone's just kind of hanging around, having cigars, drinking beer, drinking bourbon, whatever. And it's just such a wonderful way to relax. And something I look forward to most when I go camping is being able to have that cigar by the fire. And it's not the same as a fire pit for whatever reason. I think it's just being out in the wilderness, away from everything, and having that cigar. We've got fire pit, but it's not the same smoking in front of a fire pit when you're surrounded by houses. So if you do go camping and, you don't bring a cigar with you, I'd recommend bringing a cigar too. I think it's a really cool way to enjoy a cigar. But we got a question of the show as we wrap up here, rather. Very in line with the first question that we had on the beginning of the top of this episode. But I want to know in the comments below, what was the last $20 MSRP cigar that you had? Somewhere in between that, $18 to $25 range. What it was, and was it worth it? It's a really great question that I try to ask myself as I smoke a cigar. Is it box worthy? Money's not an option, so to speak. Is it box worthy? Is it a 5-pack worthy? Or is it, just a single? Just, hey, I tried it. I'm glad I tried it. but I don't necessarily think I'd pick up a 5-pack or a box of it. So in the comments below, what was the last around $20 MSRP cigar that you smoked? Was it worth it? And would you buy it again? Would you buy a box? Would you buy a 5-pack or just a single? So let us know in the comments below, and we'll select a winner randomly. And we've got a beautiful white Oliva cigar case, cigar holder that we'll send out to the winner. I believe it holds about 5 cigars, kind of a faux leather, really beautiful piece. But we'll send that out to from the winners, or a winner from the comments below. But thank you all again for joining me for another Cigar Club episode. Once again, if you're interested in getting your hands on the 1502 XO cigar, this was featured in our March Black Box, which is still available. So if you sign up prior to June, when we have our new Black Box come out, if you sign up prior to June, you will receive this cigar that I'm smoking right now in your Black Box. Like I said, it's a quarterly subscription where we're able to offer higher MSRP cigars, more limited, rare releases, and be able to bring those to you every quarter. So thank you again for joining us. Until next time, everyone, happy smoking.